Property investment and development is an area that I know inside out and back to front. This is my third video in the series where I share with you some of my successfully executed strategies that catapulted me onto the Sunday Times rich list. Fancy some of that? Then keep watching. Today I'm focusing on capital improvement. That all sounds a bit dreary, doesn't it? Well, the good news is I do let the cat out of the bag when it comes to commercial to residential conversion. In this video, I do a case study of a deal and how it made me 150 grand for a couple of weeks' work. If you're a budding property entrepreneur, grab yourself a cup of tea and watch and learn from the rest of this video. Welcome back to Get Real Estate, the series where I spill all my secrets. Okay, maybe not all my secrets, but certainly the ones to do with commercial property. This is my third vlog in this series. If you haven't already, check out my other series like Ask Shaf and 7 Hacks for more tips and advice on being an entrepreneur. But for now, let's focus on property. In the last episode of Get Real Estate, I explained what SRA Ventures and my other property companies do and how we regularly outperform the market. We pick up assets where revenue has stalled and the asset is almost a liability. Basically, we buy the properties that no one else would touch with a barge pole. We turn around these problem properties into a stable, low-risk investment product that we then decide, are we going to keep them as a core asset or are we going to sell them to crystallise the profit? The first step in our business model is the stabilisation of assets. I've already spilled the beans on exactly how we do that. If you missed that video, go and watch it right now. Here, this wee arrow is showing you exactly where to click so you can watch it. What are you waiting for? So you know how we stabilise our newly acquired assets. But once we've done that, what do we do next? That would be step 2 in our business model, and it deals with capital improvements. There's a definition of capital improvement popped up on your screen. I'll give you a couple of seconds to read it. But to put it simply and into real layman's terms, this is a stage where I open my wallet. We reinvest in the property to ensure long-term value. This could mean changing the structure or restoring the property, increasing its useful life. We might set it up for a change in use, giving us more options and its value a boost. To let us know why this is important, you need to understand that commercial property is usually let on a rate per square foot. More lettable space, known as your gross lettable area or GLA, means more rental income, which increases the value of the asset. The more square footage you add to a building, the more you add to its potential letting value and therefore its capital or investment value. You might think it's difficult to suddenly add square footage to a building unless you whack on a whopping great extension, but actually one of the easiest ways of increasing your GLA is to reconfigure the space. This works especially well in office space. If the building is poorly designed, the rentable square feet is going to be way less than the actual square feet. What can you do to change that? Look at the design and work out what improvements you can make. Are they badly designed hallways or excessive lobbies? They're simply taking up valuable rentable space. Aim to turn unlettable space into lettable space. Can you convert basements or loft space into useful revenue generating areas? Maybe you aren't in a position to upgrade and enhance the value of your investment by doing these works. If that's the case, at the very least, you need to ensure the value doesn't deteriorate. One way of doing this is by always using a full repairing and insuring lease, or an FRI lease. This type of lease places responsibility for the repair of the external, internal and structure of the property with the tenant. The lease will specify the standard that the property needs to be maintained to. At the very least, tenants will be obliged to clean, paint and look after the property. When we buy a property that hasn't been maintained to the standards set out in the lease, we issue an interim schedule of dilapidations and ensure the tenant brings the building up to scratch as per the lease. If the phrase dilapidations is not one you've come across and you'd like me to cover it in detail, please leave a message in the comments and I'll do a video about it. Of course, the tenant of the new property we have just acquired might not have been on an FRI lease. Or they may have been on an FRI lease and the previous landlords have not enforced the terms. If the tenant's other obligations contained within the lease have been complied with, we will help them upgrade or improve the building. We've done it all from full-blown extensions to simply putting in new windows and everything in between. It's rare that we buy a property that doesn't need any work. In fact, more often than not, the buildings we buy need a lot of work. To me, that's a no-brainer, as the subsequent increase in property value can be substantial. Let me tell you about dilapidated buildings we bought in Edinburgh Sighthill. The premises traded as Shapes Warehouse and were known in the city. Heads up, I'm going to look at this development in detail in a future vlog and explain how we acquired it. We'll check out the team we had to deliver the projects, the problems we faced and how we overcame them, how we marketed the units, and importantly, how I plan to exit the investment in due course. I couldn't resist snapping up the Shapes building in 2017. It had been an auction house, but local entrepreneur Ali Black, who'd bought the hammer down on auctions for 40 years, was downscaling before eventually retiring. The furniture business expanded from its original workshop in Edinburgh's Old Town before opening a successful antique auction department in 1993 and moving to Sighthill in 1998. And just to prove I'm no stranger to a spot of culture, it has a special place in the history of art in Scotland. Jack Vetriano's Dance Me to the End of Love sold there for a whopping £346,000 in 2006. Talking of money, it cost us a touch over £1 million to buy the buildings. We spent £1.2 million upgrading them, and if it all goes to plan, we aim to exit the investment for around £4 million. Like I said, I'm going to do a more in-depth video on this, but let me whet your appetite. It's not easy basically doubling your money on an investment, and to do this, we had to bring the building up to a modern standard. We also subdivided the premises into 4 commercial units to take advantage of the layout and class uses. Class use is essentially the type of business someone is allowed by the council to run from the premises. A retail class use can become a shop, for example. The front of the building benefits from a rare retail class use in an industrial estate and is now occupied by Greggs and the lighting warehouse, providing a total income of £180,000 per annum between them. I want to take a minute to point out the obvious. When you're considering investing in commercial property, always get advice from professionals. Without sounding like a broken record, you've heard me say this before and I'll say it again. These videos aren't a replacement for speaking to your chartered surveyor or using specialist property lawyers. I've been doing this for years and I still need to pick the brains of property professionals, often several times a day. In fact, I have chartered surveyors Graham and Sibbald and expert property lawyers from Gilson Gray on a retainer. That way, I know I can pick up the phone to a property expert and get a second opinion any time of the day or night. I jest you not. Okay, let's get back to business. We massively changed the layout of the former Shapes building. You will see that from the drawings on your screen. We formed a 20,000 square foot warehouse which is currently being marketed for rent from £100,000 per annum. We took great care to make it as easy to use for potential tenants as possible. It now offers open plan distribution and storage space with access at the back of the property through 2 large commercial doors. The really clever thing that we did though was to take advantage of the fact that the unit, now occupied by Greggs, benefited from hot food consent, class 3, and we transferred this to the office space on the side of the building. This unit is going to house my new crowd kitchens, and to say I'm excited is an understatement. Believe me, this is going to be a game changer. We're launching Scotland's first ghost kitchen. There will be 12 ready-to-use commercial kitchens, especially for businesses making food exclusively for delivery. They aren't restaurants in the traditional sense. They have no signage, no front of house staff, and no sitting tables. You won't go for dinner here, but your dinner will get made here and brought to you. So who's going to use them? Restaurants who already do home delivery can rent the kitchens to get high quality food out of the door for delivery without interfering with a busy lunch or dinner service. Startups can use the kitchens and will be up and running in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost it takes to set up a restaurant. Look, you and I both know, thanks to Just Eat and Deliveroo, the food delivery industry is growing rapidly, and I want to get a slice of the action. If you want to learn more about our crowd kitchens business, check out my YouTube videos. Just type in Shaf Rasul Crowd Kitchens into the YouTube search bar. So you can see that apart from investing in the property, another way of bringing about capital improvement is changing the use of a building. We've done this numerous times. A couple of years ago, we purchased a former carpet showroom and snooker hall that has been transformed into a gym, boosting its value. We also changed the use of a former bank into a restaurant, again massively increasing our capital value. I love planning and strategizing on deals that I'm going to do, but sometimes I love throwing myself into an opportunistic purchase as well. I was recently in Bowness for a meeting, and after that meeting I had a conference call. I knew I didn't have time to get back to the office in time for the call, so I pulled over in a quiet residential street ready to talk on the phone. But in this street I saw a for sale sign outside a care home. My mind was whirring with the possibilities this offered, and I couldn't resist calling the vendor. The first thing that jumped out at me was this building would make a magnificent family home. I made an offer of £220,000, which was eventually accepted. The day after it was accepted, I asked my mate Dale Somerton, who runs a drone photography company, to create a video of the property to show off just how amazing it was. Remember the phrase, location, location, location? Sorry, I couldn't resist that. But you must agree it's an amazing location for a family home. You will see from the short clip of the promo video Dale did for me, it had so much potential as a family home. And the good news was there was enough space in the garden to build a second house, subject of course to getting planning permission. I also created a brochure showing how it could look as a family home. The potential was clear to me. Here, have a look at the brochure, it's coming up right now. Dale is my go-to guy for drone videos. I've left his company details in the description. For the avoidance of doubt, Dale hasn't paid me to endorse or mention him in this video. At that point, I decided to appoint 2 agents to formally market the property for us. Okay, it was double the fees, but I knew they'd help us achieve a much better selling price. The first agent we chose was Falconer Property Consultants, who are local commercial property specialists in that part of the country. The second agent was Paul Rolfe & Co, who are the go-to residential specialists in that area. So we covered all our bases with our 2 agents. We were inundated with viewing requests and put the property to a closing date. 10 people put offers in and we accepted an offer for £375,000. Not bad for 3 weeks work, eh? I'm pretty sure that you've got some questions about this deal, and the first one has to be, Shaf, how did you know you'd make a profit? Well, I suppose it all boils down to experience, doesn't it? I know the area that we were purchasing that particular property in quite well. We've got a number of industrial estates there. We've done loads of transactions in that area. So I know what property's worth, and I know based on previous experience what the planners would allow and what they wouldn't allow. So really it was a no-brainer. I've got no doubt that the next question is going to be, how does a newbie in commercial property get this experience? Well, the first recommendation I would make is you should really basically be looking at my YouTube channel for all my property content constantly. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and as soon as I put up new property content, you'll know all about it. My channel's full of really good practical advice. I do loads of case studies on real deals that I've done. And for God's sake, if you're a newbie, whatever you do, don't go on a property training course. If you want to know why it's such a bad idea, I've got a load of videos on property gurus, or fake gurus as I call them. Go and check it out. Okay, you're probably wondering, Shaf, why did you appoint 2 agents when you could have appointed 1 and saved money? In my previous video I talked about aggressive leasing. Well, here you've got a classic example of aggressive sales. I chose 2 people, basically, no, scrub that, I chose 2 companies, and these companies, one of them was a firm of chartered surveyors, Falconer Property. Now, Sandy Falconer is basically an expert when it comes to dealing with property developers, when dealing with investors, so that was the market he was going to target. We chose Paul Rolfe & Co, and they're the go-to estate agents in that area, so it was a potential person that was looking for a home that was going to go to Paul Rolfe & Co. Now, the strategy has paid off, albeit we've paid double fees, but in my opinion, we achieved a price much higher than we would have achieved if we'd used one agent who just targeted one specific area of the market. So that was the logic behind that. Talking about things from my previous video, I also highlighted the importance of branding and using video to market a property. And, as you can see from the financial results, spending this additional cost was well worth it. People often cut corners by not getting professional advice from chartered surveyors, estate agents or lawyers, or they don't invest in marketing. In the long run, this will cause you problems and you won't be as successful as you could have been if you'd taken professional advice. So, you can see there are several ways to make capital improvements when it comes to commercial property. Bring the property up to scratch, invest in it, change its use, and don't be afraid to think outside the box with what you can do with it. You're now halfway through my step-by-step guide to becoming a success in this area, so don't miss the next episode of Get Real Estate to find out about amortization and debt. Before you go, don't forget to let me know what you think. If you have any questions about commercial property, please do leave a message in the comments below. I've also left some links for property videos that I think you'll enjoy, so please do hang about till the end of this video.